Hello, ladies and gents. Welcome back to another edition of Call to the Bullpen.
It is amazing to be back to talk about this fantastic Super Bowl matchup.
Yeah, it is. Well, if you couldn't tell, it's Jared Silberkleit
Your boy Chasey B.
and not Austin Keeney because he's on a boat.
Yeah, that's right. He is celebrating the old getting married. He's on his honeymoon.
He is sailing away from another Patriots Super Bowl.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, we're actually so excited to see Tom Brady try for his sixth Super Bowl ring that we're going to talk about this game in two consecutive episodes.
Yeah, it's great watching something new unfold in the NFL every year.
Yeah, it's great, seeing a fresh, hot young team get a crack at the prize. Well, we actually do have one, at least, right, with the Rams.
Yeah, I guess technically we do have one.
But yeah, we might get some more like last minute thoughts on the game as we get deeper into this episode because we had the NFL took its usual vacation the 1 week before the Super Bowl this past weekend because it was Pro Bowl weekend. And Chase, how much did you see a lot of the Pro Bowl or not really at all?
I mean, I saw pretty much as I needed to see. It was Yeah, I mean it's literally just a vacation for these guys. I mean they're not coming out here to really do anything but have a good time for themselves. And I'm really shocked that the Pro Bowl still is a thing at this point. It's really just an excuse for the NFL to send people to Hawaii, or did they even go to Hawaii this year?
Well, that's the thing. It's not even in Hawaii, and it's actually the last few years it's been in Orlando at the Citrus Bowl, or I'm sorry, it's called Camping World Stadium now, but it's the old Citrus Bowl.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean these guys don't want to be here, and I mean it's fun. Like I like the contests and stuff like that. I think that's a cool idea, but the game itself, it's really not worth anybody's time.
It's just tough because with the placement of the game coming at the end of the season, people thought, the players aren't going to be concerned about injury or anything like that because you don't have to worry about getting ready for any regular season games like in other sports. The All-Star game is plop in the middle of the season, but here it's just everybody's in hangover mode. Everybody they've already gotten into the off-season mindset and they really don't care about the game. And not only that, but with the rules and everything like that, it's essentially two-hand touch. I mean, you watch this game, and it doesn't even feel like you're watching a competitive sporting event. It looks like you're watching a bunch of guys just fool around in their backyard. I mean, they're jogging around the field. They're barely touching each other, trying to make defensive plays. If you could even call that trying to make defensive plays. So even if something cool happens, it's not really that impressive because it looks like they're facing no resistance.
Yeah, I mean they had at the end of the game, I think they had offense playing defense and defense playing offense.
Yeah,
That's pretty much like that's how you know you threw in the towel, and it's not a competition anymore. It wasn't even a show. Like if they made it like the Globetrotters, you know what I mean? And there's actually like interesting things happening. Like, but no, these guys are just going out there. They're like doing laterals to each other and just messing around. It's like, I mean, I get it. You guys don't want to get hurt, and you're just like playing a backyard football game. But you're making people pay to watch this. Like people are paying money to go into the stadium.
oh, without question. I mean, and that goes back to my point about it not being impressive because it's like, yeah, I saw that extended lateral play that the NFC got off in the second half of the game, but it's like the whole time the AFC defense was just standing there and letting it happen. It wasn't like they were, evading people like in the Miami Miracle where they actually, the defense was trying to win the game. So it's like, okay, you saw a lateral that went on for almost a minute straight, cool, but they just sat back and let it happen.
Yeah, it's stupid. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I knew it was going to be like that, like before it even started. So I don't. There's no reason to watch it, in my opinion. I mean, I had guys that were like, I'm a Bronco fan. Like Chris Harris had a pick. Like Von Miller makes the Pro Bowl every year, but like Who cares?
I
Who
think
cares?
I told you this before. I think that we're moving toward a point where, at the end of the day, um, they might just abolish this game altogether. I think that really the only thing that matters is players having the right to say, I am a Pro Bowl player. So it's just going to become like a just like the awards that come out at the end of the year. I think that you might as well just not even play the game and just say so and so is a Pro Bowler, like, and you have the list of the rosters, kind of like when you have the top college players, they get invited to the White House because they're on the All Pro team or something like that. Um,
Well, you
yeah,
have that already. There is an all pro team that does that. So there already is that.
not
So like
well.
there's like all pros and then there's the Pro Bowl. So technically all pros are like voted on by like a board and a committee, and those are like actually like the best of the best because like obviously you see guys in the Pro Bowl who like get in because Tom Brady makes the Super Bowl or Antonio Brown doesn't want to play. So
Or
like guys make
injuries.
the yeah, or injuries. So guys make the Pro Bowl that are like the sixth best quarterback in their position or sixth best player in their position. So good for them. They get to put it on their good to put it on their resume. But the All Pro team is like the actual like the best players of the entire year, and so they already have that.
Yeah, I just think with the placement of the game, it's kind of hurt by it. I mean, because you look at the other sports, the All Star game or All Star break just seems to be more involved, more exciting. I feel like the NFL Pro Bowl probably has the least buzz surrounding it out of any of the big four sports All Star games. Even hockey, which is much less popular in the U.S. than football is, I feel like their All Star game is handled much, much better and really received as a bigger deal.
Yeah, I mean, you could play hockey without having to, check each other or really hurt anybody. But football, it's like every play has to end in a tackle. So I mean, I get it. I get that they don't want. I mean, it's the end of the season; they're exhausted. They don't want to get hurt, so they're going, 50%, if that. So, I mean, I get it from the player's standpoint of view. I don't really know if there's anything that the league can do to make it more exciting. I mean, a couple of years ago, they tried to do the whole like drafted teams, and with like Jerry Rice and like Randy Moss or something like that.
Yes,
Uh,
what they did was they dissolved the conferences and they had like a Pro Bowl draft right there to make the teams. So you had AFC and NFC players playing together.
Yeah, I mean that was a cool idea to give it a little juice, but I mean every year this happens. The fact that they had to do that a couple years ago just shows like the Pro Bowl just always sucks. It just always sucks.
And the weather was a factor this year too. It was raining the whole time.
Oh yeah, it was. It was nasty out.
Blech. Like in Florida when it rains like that and the humidity is just through the roof. It's just muggy and nasty outside.
Yeah, I did like catch a couple parts of the game, and there's nobody in the stands.
No, no. My parents actually they live like an hour and a half, I want to say, from that stadium, and they had tickets. My dad was telling me all regular season that he had Pro Bowl tickets, and then I think he just sold them over the last week
Yeah,
or two.
absolutely. Sell them for some schmuck who thinks that they're gonna have a good time. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think the skills challenges. I don't know if that's included in the Pro Bowl tickets or if that's just like free entry. I think the skills challenges are cool. So maybe they just do one like a week of just skill challenges or like a weekend of just skill challenges.
Yeah, sure. Or like I don't know, you have some abridged games. Maybe do something interesting like what the NHL's done with like a 3-on-3 or a 4-on-4 or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Or you could just make it flag football. It'd be interesting to see that happen.
It practically is flag football already.
Exactly. At least you're actually serving up something, or at least the viewers know what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah, without a doubt. But that wasn't the only action going down on Sunday. Moving outside of football, we also had one of the WWE's biggest events of the year. They had the Royal Rumble on Sunday night in Phoenix, Arizona. They actually had the show at the Diamondback Stadium, Chase Field.
Hey,
Yeah, it was kind of a unique setup because they didn't have their usual big entrance stage for the show. Basically, what they did was they built out an entrance from one of the dugouts, so they had a very short like Titantron for guys like entrance videos and stuff like that. So they didn't have some big set that was taking up seating space in the stadium. So they had people like behind the entranceway and whatnot. and then they would just
That's
like,
old school.
yeah, yeah, it was cool. I mean, I have always liked smaller sets like that because you get to fit more people in the building, and it's just
Yeah, and when you're there too, it's like it feels more. I don't know. You just feel it feels more personal.
oh yeah, yeah, without question, without question. Sets it apart from the TV stage setup too. So, um, yeah, I mean they drew they reported the attendance of 48,000, which of course is a big number. Um, now they have two Royal Rumbles because they have a men's and a women's. Becky Lynch won the women's Rumble, and Seth Rollins won the men's. So,
I think that it's interesting that Becky's like persona is like the man or whatever. That's her like gimmick.
yep, yeah, it's crazy how that took off. Just at the end of it was around the end of the summer. It was kind of it was almost similar the way that the fans kind of rallied behind her, like they did with Daniel Bryan a few years ago. But this time they seem to respond creatively, like really quickly to it, and now she's got a match with Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania, and they're talking like this could be the first women's match to ever main event the show.
Like main event, main event.
Yeah, yeah, like they're talking like this could actually be the last match on the card.
That'd be interesting. I would be against that. Um, I mean, WWE is making strides in the right direction for the women's roster and the women's like. I mean, you know how it is. They're going more wrestling based with them, and they're really pushing them. You know, the first women's Royal Rumble was last year, I think,
Yeah,
and that was a huge success. And like, you know, they're getting their equal rights and their equal dues, just like I mean they deserve. This is not like it's not like how it was back in the day when Dawn Marie was wrestling Trish Stratus. Like these girls actually know what the hell they're doing. So it's cool to see.
right, right, right. No, you got a great point there. And bringing in a girl like Ronda Rousey, who I mean, she was when she was on top in the UFC, she was headlining those shows. She was the top draw in the sport, period, over any man. So WWE knew what they were getting into when they signed her up. And honestly, I'm surprised that to this point she hasn't had a pay per view main event for WWE just yet. So this would actually be a first for her. And I've really enjoyed watching her wrestling matches in WWE. She obviously doesn't have a lot of experience. She trained for maybe a few months down in Florida before she made her debut in the ring, and I just think her MMA experience, because she incorporates a lot of submission holds into her matches, that because she's been there, done that with how these holds are really executed in a real fight, that kind of helps her ability to portray them in a professional wrestling sense because it's like you know what kind of damage these holds would actually inflict. So it it helps her ability to work them and play into the suspension disbelief.
Yeah, I mean, she's got a lot. I mean, just like Brock Lesnar when he was doing both MMA and WWE, he was bouncing back and forth. I mean, he took a lot of the knowledge he learned in the MMA, and because obviously he was a WWE guy first, and well, actually, technically, he was a junior wrestler first, an Olympic wrestler.
Yeah,
So,
NCAA. Yep.
so technically, he knew all that stuff beforehand, anyways. But my point is that having a background is in these other sorts of wrestling type sports is really effective, and like you said, she knows where it hurts and she knows what what's too far and what'll break her arm and what won't break her arm and stuff like that. And that's knowledge in itself that a lot of these girls that don't go through what Ronda Rousey did, they don't know. So it really gives her an advantage.
It just helps the ability to to really sell these holds and and make people buy into what's happening in the ring because too oftentimes in wrestling you'll see somebody like struggle in a submission for maybe a minute straight, which if you've ever watched MMA is an eternity.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, and also like it adds to like the mystique. Like you think Ronda Rousey, if she gets pissed off or Brock Lesnar gets pissed off, that they actually might go ahead and break this poor person's arm off. So like
Yeah,
it really helps to like be like, oh shit, like is she actually gonna do it? Like so it adds a little like flavor, a little realism to it because obviously if you're our age and you're an older crowd, that like the WWE is entertainment, so it's cool to kind of still have your butt on the edge of the seat.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, those Brock Lesnar matches over the last few years, some of them have just been like so violent. I remember that Randy Orton match from a few years ago at SummerSlam where he hard way busted him open with the elbows to the head, and he just had that gaping gash in his forehead.
Oh my god, yeah, I thought that he'd lost it, but apparently they said it was all sold. I don't know if I believe that or not. He might be saying it so he doesn't get sued.
Well, the story that came out backstage was that um, there was a story that came out that Chris Jericho had approached Lesnar about it angrily after the match was over because he thought he went too far, and Randy was the one who assured him that, hey, we went over this, it's a work. Um, Maybe the idea was probably hard way because WWE has supposedly banned blading, so that's the way to get around it to make it look like a quote unquote accident. However, they probably just didn't intend for it to go to that level. I think that was the story at the time.
Oh, brutal. Okay. Oh my god, Randy Orton is a savage then. He's like, yeah, man, bust me open with your elbow. It'll be awesome. Like, what?
It's crazy. It's crazy, man. It's crazy because, like I said, they're against blading now, but it's like, how much safer would it be for someone to just run that thin, small razor barely across the forehead than to actually try to like bust somebody open for real?
Take somebody's elbow and implant it into their skull. That is just brutal.
Yeah, craziness. But yeah, so they'll be doing WrestleMania in a couple months from MetLife Stadium in Jersey, um, and yeah, obviously
Who's Seth facing?
Seth is actually going to be taking on Lesnar.
Oh, well, that's funny. I didn't even know that. I used to be a diehard wrestling fan, and I've just been so busy. I haven't really kept up with it. I used to go to the shows a lot actually, and watch every pay-per-view, but I just got so busy. But I like to. It's cool that I still know what's kind of going on. I know the people. I know who's still. Well, actually, I guess that's kind of bad in a way that it's the same people that I know.
They've got some new faces coming up though. Some fresh matchups. I mean, with Rollins, this is going to be the first time that he's been in that main event picture for the heavyweight title in a while. So it's between him and Lesnar. I don't know if they've actually wrestled one on one. If they did, that it was several years ago. So there seems to be some buzz and
Uh,
excitement around him.
yeah, I don't know about one-on-one. I can remember the triple threat match with them that was really awesome. It was like, it was him, Rollins, and Cena? Was that the triple threat match?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was the advertised trip. Yeah, they did that as a triple threat at the Rumble a few
Yeah.
years ago. But then he also cashed in at Mania when it was Lesnar versus Roman Reigns, and where he used the Money in the Bank and won the title.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, like you said, there definitely is history between the two of them. So I mean, hopefully they put out a memorable WrestleMania match. It looks like they have some big stuff planned for the show. Sure, it's going to be a sold out, packed attendance as usual at MetLife. They actually were at that stadium just a few years ago, which is
I was gonna say that. I was
yeah.
like, they're at MetLife again. That's weird.
Yeah, they actually, and they were in New Orleans last year, and that was only about 4 years since the previous one there. So, I mean, the NFL kind of
Maybe
does this. The NFL kind of does the same thing with the Super Bowl. Honestly, they have really just a few stadiums that they really like the location.
I was gonna say it probably has to do with where they make the most money. So they probably had success at MetLife.
Yeah, I mean, for a while it was the Super Bowl mentality of we want either warm weather or a dome stadium, but New York is such a gigantic market that you can't deny them every now and then. Every now and then you have to indulge that area just because there's so many people.
Yeah, they did MetLife in 2013 because that's when the Broncos got smoked by the Seahawks. Yeah, that was a horrible, horrible memory. But I remember that because I wanted to go to that game really badly. and I decided I couldn't because I was a college kid at the time. And that was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made because I would have been absolutely miserable. If you don't know the outcome of that game, go ahead and look it up.
Uh, I remember watching that with you. It was actually, yeah, we were at Austin's.
Yeah, we were
Austin.
at Austin's.
Yep, I remember watching that game, and after halftime, you gave them maybe a couple drives tops, and I think it was the first Seahawks touchdown in the third quarter, where it might have even been like a pick six. Um,
Yeah, and I actually left.
I remember you turning to us and going, "So, I'm gonna go home."
And you guys were probably like, okay, be careful.
I remember I was so disappointed with that game. Like, not even just as an NFL fan, because it's like, if to me on paper, if the Giants aren't in the Super Bowl, then that's the type of Super Bowl that I want. I want two teams that I genuinely view as the best and a classic game. And because the Broncos were favored in that game.
Oh, yeah, they were. Those were the highest scoring offense in the NFL. That was the year that Peyton Manning threw for like whatever the touchdown record is now, 60 touchdowns or whatever, 55.
Yeah, 55, which is still pretty damn high. So,
Yeah, I don't know. Patrick Mahomes might break that next year.
he might. Peyton had the weapons that year, though.
Oh, yeah, he did. Yeah, Julius Thomas. Remember that guy? He used to be good.
Yeah. There was Julius Thomas and Demarius Thomas, and Emmanuel Sanders, and this is when these guys were like peak and really, really good.
Yeah, they were fantastic. Good
Anderson,
times. CJ Anderson, I'm glad that you brought that up. If we could segue into the Super Bowl now, CJ Anderson, everybody, if you're listening to this podcast right now, CJ Anderson is the Patriots' freaking kryptonite. This dude has played against them in many a times, playoff games and just like regular season games, because the Broncos used to play regular season games against the Patriots all the time because, it was Brady versus Manning for 5 years. And CJ Anderson, dude, he was an savage, absolute savage in all of these games. I would seriously watch out for CJ Anderson. He could be the real kick in the ass that the Rams need to get over the Patriots.
that would be phenomenal. That's a great stat. It's so funny how you mention that because it seems like it's always the unsung players that are the Patriots' kryptonite, right? Like the Giants with Eli Manning, the Ravens with Joe Flacco, and C.J. Anderson. The Broncos even beat them. Well, they beat them twice in the AFC Championship, but the second year was when Peyton, had in his last year when he had the worst year of his career.
Yeah. And so how do you think Peyton fared? He didn't fare very well, but CJ Anderson, I'm pretty sure he had a touchdown in that game at least. The dude is an animal. And the game that sticks out in my mind is it was just a regular season game, same year, so 2015. Brock Osweiler got the start because Peyton was dealing with some injuries, and it was a snow game. Goes into overtime. CJ Anderson runs a 60-yard halfback toss all the way to the end zone to walk-off touchdown. It was incredible. He had like over 150 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. I'm telling you, he could be the Patriot killer. He might not be in Eli Manning, but he might be enough for the Rams.
That'd be phenomenal, and I mean, they really are leading on him like crazy. I mean, the fact that in Gurley's post game interview after the NFC Championship, people asked him like, "Are you okay? Are you still hurt?" Because he only had 4 carries in that game. He only had, I think, 5 touches total, 1 small catch or two catches maybe. But he said, "No, I wasn't in because I didn't deserve to be in." So I kind of find that slightly hard to believe just because Gurley is such a talented player that I feel like if he was fully healthy, they would have given him the rock more than 4 times. But
Yeah, I think you're going to see that split count more like 15-10 in the Super Bowl.
yeah,
It's going to be I think the both guys will get double-digit carries if the game plan for the Rams goes right and it's not a blowout from the Patriots.
Well, it depends. It depends, how effective the run is because the Patriots actually have done a pretty decent job against the run in the postseason so far, holding down Melvin Gordon, holding down Damian Williams. So, and we saw that the Rams can lean on Goff to throw it. What did he throw it 40 times in the NFC title game?
Yeah, but you don't want to do that. I know. I know he did all right, and I mean, obviously they won, so he did more than all right. But you don't want to rely on a pissing match between Jared Goff and Tom Brady.
Oh no, without a doubt. I mean, the Rams' game is running the ball, so
Yeah,
you're gonna you hope that you get that going, but they were a pretty pass oriented team, almost exclusively pass oriented because even before they got C.J. Anderson later in the season, when it was just Todd Gurley, there were some games where he maxed out at maybe 10 to 15 carries tops because they were so pass heavy. Granted, that was when they had Cooper Kupp, but nonetheless, that still involves Goff throwing the ball more than 30 times.
yeah. I mean, if Goff gets going, what I think Sean McVay will do is he'll get Goff going, like through easy screen passes to Todd Gurley or little check downs to Brandon Cooks. I think if he gets Goff, because he's going to be shook. There's going to be. I mean, I know he played in the NFC Championship, but he's going to be shook playing in the Super Bowl. So I think if he gets some easy completions underneath his belt and other sorts of things like that, then they actually might have a chance to get him rolling early. But that's like you want to rely on C.J. Anderson and Todd Gurley in the play action.
Oh yeah, totally agree. So let me ask you this: we know that we've said it on paper. It's safe to say that this is probably the least impressive Patriots team to go to a Super Bowl in the Brady era, right?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, I don't remember like the early years that well. I mean, yeah, I was alive, but I was a kid then. So I'm not sure comparing them to like his first Super Bowl run. I mean, yeah, he had guys like Troy Brown and Willie McGinnis and stuff like that. And I guess you really can't even say that. I mean,
Well,
they were the super.
they were a very defensive oriented team there for in the first three Brady championships because Brady, a lot of people forget this. The undefeated season in 2007 was really his first stud regular season. That was one of his first seasons where he was putting up Peyton Manning numbers in the regular season. If you look at the numbers in the early 2000s, Tom Brady, they're not horrible or anything, but it's more of he's more of a game manager, efficient quarterback who finds ways to win, but he's not lighting it up. He's not one of those certainly not one of those prime fantasy quarterbacks at that point.
Yeah, no, I mean when you look at Tom Brady, you don't think of arm strength. You don't think of you don't really even think of you think of Peyton Manning. He's changing plays. He's calling out defenses at the line of scrimmage. He's doing all this sort of hand gestures and stuff. Even Brady, yeah, Brady does that, but it's not to any extreme that other quarterbacks don't do it. So he doesn't really stand out like that. Brady stands out because you give him the ball with 2 minutes left, he'll bring you down to scoring field position. He stands out because he doesn't make mistakes. He's clutch. And obviously, he's been around for so long, and he's still doing it. So I think that if Brady won what is he? He's got 5 now?
5.
So if he won 4, so take away the last one he won against the Falcons, which honestly is the biggest freaking disgrace to a franchise ever. Take away the one from the Falcons. If Brady's got 4 Super Bowl rings, I mean, you're not really arguing that he's the greatest of all time, because what did Joe have? Joe has 5 or Joe has 6? I think Joe has 5. And it really has to do with the fact that he's so reliable. He's still doing it at such a late age, and he hasn't really lost a step. He's lost a step, but still he's the top 5 quarterback in the league right now.
Yeah, he's
So
not blowing anybody away with his downfield throws, but he's still finding ways to, I mean, he's finding ways to manage himself and win, um,
right.
considering that he's past his prime. Which, I mean, the best athletes all do that because you're just not going to be at the top of your game when you're in your 40s. That would be absurd to think that. So you have to find different ways to win. Is he did he do as many impressive athletic and quarterback quote unquote things as Patrick Mahomes this season? Absolutely not. But it's a testament to his intelligence, his preparation, and and just his experience that he is right back in the Super Bowl again.
Yeah, I mean, the dude is an absolute legend, and he's already said that he wants to come back next year. So
I think he said at least
even
2 years.
even if they win, he said there's no way that we're retiring. I mean, honestly, I don't know how his family life is. I don't know. I know he's got kids. I know that they did the whole Tom and Time thing, and I watched a couple episodes of that. But you gotta feel bad. This is me personal. This is me right here. So like, don't take this for anything other than my personal opinion. You gotta kind of feel bad for his family because there's no way that he thought his kids would be 10 years old and he'd be doing this for what is it? This is gonna be his 19th year or something like that.
Yeah, because he started in 2000 technically I think was his first year. He didn't play, but he was still he didn't really play, but he was like the fourth string quarterback, but he was still on the team in the league. So this would be season number 19, I believe.
I feel you got to feel kind of bad for his family, just because
I'm sure
I
they're
don't think
used
that
to it.
I know. I just don't think that they were expecting this. I think they probably would have expected him to retire, 2 or 3 years ago, and now he's saying he wants to go to 45. I mean, yeah, they're used to it, but it's definitely not. It's not normal. It's not because I mean, you imagine he's gone for pretty much most of what August to since they make it to the Super Bowl every year, August to February. So he's gone for 6 months out of the year. You only see him twice a week. It's kind of tough.
You know whose fault all of this is?
Whose fault is it?
Pete Carroll.
Oh yeah.
If Pete Carroll ran that ball, he changed the course of recent NFL history with that play call. I firmly believe because Bill Belichick, this was about the time that he wanted to replace Tom Brady. He had the plan for the future in place. He wanted Garoppolo. And if they lost to the Seahawks, that might have been his ammunition to convince Kraft, hey, it's time for the new direction. Because guess what? Now, all of a sudden, the narrative is, well, you know what? That Tom Brady, he's lost his last 3 Super Bowls with us. Because that was their first championship since they beat the Eagles back in 2005. So, guess what? If they decide, all right, let's get ready for the future now. Maybe the Falcons Super Bowl doesn't happen. Last year's Super Bowl doesn't happen. This year's Super Bowl doesn't happen.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I don't know though, just because we see Tom lose in the Patriots because it's not just Tom. We like to talk about how it's only Tom, but it's a team effort. We see the Patriots. They bounced back from a Super Bowl loss last year, so they clearly have some sort of grit in that locker room that these other teams just cannot find. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. They changed the coaching staff. It's not like it's been the same coaching staff for 20 years. The only really constants are Belichick and Brady.
I agree with you completely, but I think that the Patriots losing last year's Super Bowl is kind of dissuaded by the fact that it's easier to take because they won their previous 2 attempts. And that Seahawks Super Bowl I think was so pivotal for them because if they had lost that game, all of a sudden it's like this. It's like the New York Yankees thing where like they had a stretch where it's like every year they're expected to win the World Series, and with the Pats making it to all these consecutive AFC Championship games, that was their first Super Bowl win in 10 years. So if they had lost that game, it would have been okay. They have now the last 3 times they've been to the Super Bowl, they've lost all those times. So it's like okay, for all the talk, they've only won it all. Um, granted, 3 times is great, but it hadn't happened in 10 years. So I think that kind of reaffirmed for this, this portion of the Brady era that it was still the way to go.
So, what do you think a loss in this year's Super Bowl does to the Patriots and to Tom Brady? I mean, 2 in a row sucks really bad. Getting there is an accomplishment, but losing almost seems like it's. Personally, let me say this first. I don't think they're going to lose. I think they're going to win. But losing 2 Super Bowls in a row, it doesn't help your legacy. I'll tell you that.
It sucks. I mean, but I really felt like the Patriots peaked as a franchise with that win over Atlanta because they already had 4 Super Bowls. So what's the only way they could top it? They had to do something that no other team had ever done before. And I'm not talking about, a big time blowout win cuz whatever. You practically expect that to happen even though they've won, all their Super Bowl wins have been close. Something like that, it's like, well, okay, they're the Patriots. But for them to rally from that deficit and then win in overtime, first Super Bowl to ever go to overtime, largest deficit ever overcome in Super Bowl history, it was like, there's no possible way that with the types of teams that you've beaten, I mean, you beat the greatest show on turf. You won one of the most thrilling Super Bowls over Carolina. You beat Philadelphia with Donovan McNabb after they made it to all those NFC title games. Then you beat the Seahawks in what some would say was the best Super Bowl of all time. I've seen it atop many lists, and that team is one of the best teams in recent memory. The 2013 to 2015 Seahawks were unbelievable. So
Yeah.
the only way to top that would be because again you're playing the freaking Atlanta Falcons first of all, who it's like the only time that they ever make it that far in the playoffs is when the rest of the NFC sucks.
They were like 14-2 that year, weren't they? They were. I remember
12
them
and
having
4.
Really?
No, 11 and 5. 11 and 5.
Are you positive? Are you looking at stats right now? Or are you throwing that out there?
I'm looking at stats right now. They were 11 and 5 that year, and they were the second seed. Okay, that's how bad the NFC was that year.
But didn't they have this like high-powered offense? Because I'm pretty sure that I remember that was the year that Matt Ryan and Julio Jones were just absolutely insane.
No. They did have a great offense, but they've always just kind of been that team that like some years they're better than others. They do have the talent on offense, but it's kind of like they're like a poor man's Saints essentially. They are a dome team that some years they really really light it up, and when they do, that's when they can threaten in the playoffs, and they also need the home field advantage. So
Well, they had it. It was in a dome when they played.
yeah, it was because the Cowboys lost in the. I mean, they play inside too, but the Falcons had the home field advantage because the Cowboys lost in the divisional round, so they got to host the NFC Championship.
Oh yeah, because the Pack. I remember that. Yeah, that was a weak NFC because that Cowboys team lost in their first game.
Yeah, and they had a really light schedule. The Giants beat them twice, and then they lost their first playoff game to the Packers.
Yeah, I mean you make a valid point, but at the same time, it's like the Patriot. It doesn't matter how you do it. I guess it just matters that you do it. And we could talk about how the Patriots have an easy division and they at least get a bye the first week every year, and now all that is true honestly, but it still takes a lot for a team to win 3 games against really good opponents and have to deal with all the stresses of traveling to. Well, I guess technically they don't travel a lot, but the Super Bowl and getting ready for that, and it's I want to take something away from it, but I really can't. I think that what they've done, they really deserve.
I just think that like this game is so neutral to the Patriots' legacy. To go back to your original question, I feel like the Rams are not a better team than some of the teams they played in the past. If you're comparing past Patriots Super Bowl championships, I think that it's I mean, another win would be nice and all. It's certainly impressive whenever you win the Super Bowl, but just the fact that this would be the sixth one, and I don't think that. I mean, I guess the most impressive aspect of it would be that they're still that even at their quote unquote worst, they're still better than everybody else. I guess that's the argument.
Yeah.
But to me, their legacy, Tom Brady's legacy, they're already set in stone. They were set in stone. I think that Seahawks win. I feel like that was the statement that
Yeah.
they needed, and then the Falcons one was the exclamation mark. And now, if they
Yeah.
get anything else, it's just gravy.
Well, I think if Brady wins, he's the only quarterback to have six, I believe. So that'll be, that'll be his like crowning achievement to really be the greatest. Um, but yeah, no, I know what you're saying. But and at the same time, it's like we don't like I don't hate Tom Brady. I mean, there's a lot of controversy around how he won or how the Patriots win because you got the whole like deflate gate and the cameras and recording practices. So you have that. So that's always kind of like tainted his legacy. But it's like I don't hate LeBron James, and LeBron James is in the NBA championship every year. Like it is what it is. I mean, we're all ready for something new. I think that's what it comes down to. We're all ready to see that new hotness, and we loved Patrick Mahomes and what he did and how he lit the NFL on fire, and we feel like we were robbed of seeing Patrick Mahomes go to a Super Bowl, and we feel like we were robbed of the Saints going to the Super Bowl. To be quite honest, to see Drew Brees try to get another one. I guess that's what kind of comes down to why this Super Bowl to me is a little bit lackluster. It's just because we had two teams that had great stories, and Sean McVay, that's a great story because he's young and up and coming guy. But to me, I just feel like we got the worst of the four.
I do think that this is probably yeah. I mean, I actually said that I preferred this to Saints and Patriots just because I think the Rams offer some freshness to the matchup because it's their first crack at it. It's a new squad it really is like a brand new contender in the NFL. It's not even like, a bunch of great established players just happen to come together on a different team like what, you see other teams, they try to take pieces and build their own and it's not homegrown. But the Rams really are. I mean, they've made some key acquisitions, but they've also got some pretty key home. Yeah,
yeah, a lot of it's free agents though too. I mean,
some of it is.
You got Sue, Talib, Peters, Cooks. I mean, C.J. Anderson. A lot of it is free agents. They pretty much they made a win now team, is in my opinion.
Well, I think that they fortified with pieces because last year's team was very good. They were 11-5, so then they did what any good contender should do, which is add to it to try to go all in. But still, they have a foundation with some with drafted guys. I mean, with Jared Goff and Todd Gurley, here you have two key first rounders that their offense is very much built around. And then on top of that, I mean, Sean McVay, so much of this team's success is thanks to him and his just his genius.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is really going to be a battle of wits between these two coaches. It'll be interesting to see if Sean McVay can come up with a game plan to, make offensive plays. Let's not forget that Bill Belichick is a defensive-minded coach. He's not an offensive-minded coach. He was a defensive coordinator. Like, that's his bread and butter, is to build a defense that will shut you down. And it'll be interesting for Sean McVay to, try to create a recipe that Bill Belichick won't be able to handle. And that's pretty much what happened last Super Bowl. It was Doug Peterson being risky, calling trick plays, really like taking the top off the defense. And that's how the Eagles won last year. So it's gonna take something similar from Sean McVay. And as for the offense for the Patriots, that comes down to running the ball and play action with Brady. If you keep Brady clean, he's gonna kill you. So Aaron Donald and Dominic Sue are going to be absolutely essential for the Rams defense this Sunday.
Totally agree. And going back to the legacy argument, the Rams are obviously not a veteran team. They're the exact opposite. So how we're not talking all-time legacy with them because obviously it's going to be a first-time Super Bowl for pretty much everybody involved. I mean, first time most of them have even played in one, I believe. So how would this Rams team compare to some of the recent Super Bowl winners over the last 10 to 20 years if they were to win, and what does it mean for the franchise going forward?
It would mean everything because they just moved back to LA or to LA. I'm not sure what the proper term would be there.
It would be
They
back.
just moved to yeah, exactly. So they just moved to LA, and this fan base isn't really a fan base yet. I mean, they're still growing. Like, there's no diehards. I mean, you show like the Rams fans at the Saints Stadium, and there's like three people that they're showing, and it's like, your classic California looking guys, and so it's not like it's not a diehard culture yet. So it will be really interesting to see because I would love to see what that Super Bowl parade would be like because it ain't going to be like Philly last year where they fucking shut down the whole state.
Oh my God. Could you imagine what it would have been like if they lost that game?
Yeah, right. It's been horrible.
They won. You should be happy. They destroyed the place.
Yeah, well, that's Philly for you. And I'm telling you right now that LA is going to be nothing like that.
No,
Nothing.
no. And I mean, I think that they have more fans than the Chargers do in LA. But
Yeah, I would say so. Which is funny because these are two of the best teams in the NFL right now.
yeah, but it's just LA. Like you have to educate the people. They're not used to having football. They're not used to having anything but college football there, and it has not been really a very passionate sports market. In all honesty, I mean, like I feel like the Lakers and the Dodgers probably have the most passionate sports fans in LA. And even though the Rams were based there back in the day, that was decades ago, and only really old people remember that. So this generation, our generation in LA, they're not used to having a pro football team. So it's going to take some consistent success in order to ingratiate that into the Los Angeles culture.
Yes, I agree.
But how do you think the team compares to just on a football level
Compares to what?
to some of the recent Super Bowl winners? Would this be one of the better teams, one of the worst teams?
It seems like if they win again, then that would mean the last two Super Bowl winning quarterbacks are Nick Foles and Jared Goff. So what it seems like to me is that, quarterback might not be the most important thing anymore because, in my opinion, I am not a big Jared Goff truther. I think he's an average quarterback. He reminds me a lot of Joe Flacco-esque. Like, he's good enough. He's a very Andy Dalton in my mind. I don't see him as I don't see him as a Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees type of guy. And if they win, it's because Todd Gurley, C.J. Anderson run the ball and Aaron Donald makes sacks. I don't see them winning under Jared Goff's arm. And last year, it was weird because Nick Foles had this Cinderella season, the Cinderella end of the season into Cinderella playoff. And the dude threw it for like 5 touchdowns or 4 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. And now he doesn't have a job. So, in my opinion, it's really, I don't think they stack up. I don't think that we're going to be talking about this team as one of the all-time great teams. Otherwise, we'd probably be talking about them as one of the all-time great teams already, and we're not. So
I feel like we could in the future, though. Like I feel like maybe they're not at their, because they did look to be a truly elite team. I think one of the best in the last 10 years midway through the season. And then once, the injuries start to hit with Cooper Kupp and then the offensive play kind of regressed toward the end of the season. That was unfortunate, but I think that this offense really lit it up last year. And in the first half of the season, when they had all their wideouts healthy, they were putting up points in bunches. They were getting comparisons to the greatest show on turf. And I think that Jared Goff has not peaked as a player yet. So, I mean, to win a Super Bowl here when you're arguably not at your best as a team, I don't think that the Rams are in mid-season form right now. They are winning, but they've won in the playoffs. The wins that they've had in the playoffs have had a very different feel than their wins in the first half of the regular season, where it just felt like they were a more polished and kind of dominant football team. But I think that their weapons on offense are young enough, especially, Goff has more developing to do. And knowing that Sean McVay, especially if he wins the Super Bowl, he's going to be around for a long time. This could be one of those, one of the next NFL juggernauts.
Juggernaut, yeah, I could see. I mean, they're going to be good for a long time, I think. So I going back to what you said about them not being at their best form right now, I completely agree. This team is not the same team that we saw, 8 weeks ago. And that should be a little bit concerning for them going into this matchup, because the Patriots are way better than they looked 8 weeks ago, which is why I'm very positive that the Patriots are going to win this game.
This is a good point. This is true. The Patriots are definitely playing their best football right now.
Yeah. So these and the Rams kind of, I don't want to say they lucked into it, but they pretty much lucked into it. They yellow flagged their way into this position.
Well, they put themselves in that position with some very gritty play, I thought, in New Orleans, and that's the thing. They grinded out that win, which is not.
Yeah.
That's not the term.
Yeah, no, it's not. I don't want to take that away from them, but do we really think they were the best team in the NFC last week or 2 weeks ago? No, I don't think they were. And I also don't think that the Pats were the best team in the AFC 2 weeks ago. Now I honestly do. Now I see why the Chiefs, couldn't get the job done, because you can't rely on an offense only. Like, you have to be able to play defense. And that's really, that's really going to be the key for this matchup, is what the Rams are able to do on offense, and if they're able to stop Brady and the run game on defense.
I think that they do have the pass rush up front. I think with freaking Aaron Donald and Fowler and Sue and Brockers and those guys up front, they have the bodies to stop the run and pressure the passer. They have a lot of, with Talib in the secondary, he's going to be a big player, obviously, because we know that Marcus Peters is pretty much been as overrated as they come. So it's going to be up, much like any team that's played the Pats. You're not going to win a total all-out shootout with them. You're going to have to make some defensive plays. And if Tom Brady has all day to sit back there behind that offensive line, he's going to make throws. He's going to find his guys. The Eagles won a game that turned into a shootout in last year's Super Bowl, but they still were able to come up with some stops to, at least if they didn't shut them down, they slowed them down. And that's what the Rams are going to have to do.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. You know how to beat Brady. Pressure him and don't give him a run game.
Yeah, that sums it up.
We've seen it for so long.
Yeah.
It's just like we've seen. Wade Phillips. To be fair, Wade Phillips has been one of the guys that's been able to stop Brady. So maybe that gives them a little bit of an edge. So.
Yep. Yeah. No. Definitely ran the money there. This doesn't look like the sexiest matchup on paper, but hey, last year's Super Bowl, I don't think people were thinking it was going to be the greatest game of all time, and it actually ended up being a top 10 Super Bowl at minimum. I think people would say. Some people say top 5.
I think there's a 25% chance that this game is absolutely amazing, and I think that there's a 50% chance that this game is average, and I think that there's a 25% chance that this game is a blowout and absolutely stupid.
I don't see it being a blowout.
I can absolutely see the Rams getting blown out. I don't want it to happen, but I can absolutely see it happening.
Well, they haven't been blown out all year.
I'm telling you, man. I don't like this matchup. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
They put together a lot of impressive wins this year, honestly. The Rams, for all the grief, all the flack, they still put together. They were the second best team in the NFL this year, and the only reason they were the second best at first was because they lost the first game to the Saints, and although the win in the NFC title game was disputed, they still ended up going 1-1 with them this year. So they're here in the Super Bowl, and they were one of the NFL's top teams this year, and I think and that's why I'm feeling good that they are gonna upset the Pats and bring it home.
All right, so I got Pats, you got Rams.
Ram Jam, baby.
All right. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep. So that'll be the Super Bowl. We will recap it next week. It is these Patriots Super Bowls are becoming very redundant and tiresome, and I really just wish that the Giants would get back to this game because the Super Bowl is a lot more fun when they're in it.
Same with the Broncos.
And the only Giants Broncos Super Bowl happened before both of us were alive.
Hey, man, 5 years, you never know.
Did you have any memories of watching the Broncos Super Bowl wins with Elway?
Of course not. I was like 4 years old.
Well, hey, I remember watching the Yankees win the World Series around that same time. So I know we're little, but I didn't know if you were into football when you were a little kid.
No, I liked them, sure, but I can't remember that. I can tell you, like, I've seen videos and montages of it, but actually sitting there watching the game, I have absolutely no memory of.
All right, fair enough. Because I actually became a football fan later on. My first Super Bowl that I watched was actually Patriots Panthers.
You had to pick that one, huh?
Yeah, it was my first.
Then,
yeah.
At that moment, you're like, I hate this Patriot team.
No. That was the following year actually, because the first time, because it was the first time I ever watched a football game, I was rooting for the Patriots, and then the following year, I was like, oh, this team again? Nah, they suck. And then, of course, I got into like hardcore. That was about the time I was getting into like hardcore Giants fan mode. Anyway, the game didn't sting as much as last year's Patriots Eagles game did, but after that, I was thankful that I didn't have to see a Super Bowl like that for a while.
Yeah, that one hurt you. I guess that'd be like watching the Chiefs, or like, I don't even hate the Chiefs. I think I hate the Raiders more. I think if it was like Raiders, who's my NFC team that I would absolutely hate? Raiders, Seahawks. That would kill me. I don't like the Seahawks for obvious reasons.
No, yeah. Everyone seems to like really have a problem with that team, like the attitudes and It seems like if you're not a fan of them, they just give off really bad vibes. I never hated them as much as everybody else, but they seem to be one of them. Yeah.
It's just some teams, man. A lot of people don't like the Bears, but now they're a big team now. So people didn't used to like the Bears. The freaking Bengals, right? With Perfect, same thing. Like, people hate the Bengals now.
Do you remember that playoff game from a couple years ago where Perfect tried to murder Antonio Brown?
Yeah, no, it takes one person. Like, people used to hate the Dolphins because Sue was on it and he was stepping on people. Like, it just takes one bad apple to really ruin a franchise for some people. Just because they're undisciplined and they're acting like assholes.
The Ravens would fall into that bucket too. I like the Ravens a lot, but they are one of the NFL's more hated franchises just because they've always been one of the more physical and violent teams in the league.
Yeah,
I think it comes from a good.
Yeah.
And then the Ray Lewis murder thing rubbed a lot of people the wrong way for obvious reasons.
Yep. Yep, it did.
You don't say, right? They said he was innocent. Not going to comment any further. But
so was OJ.
So was you know who OJ was? OJ was a Giant.
Yep. Yep, he was.
He sure was. Man, those early Giants teams. I know that you could probably care less, but just the fact that a coaching staff that had Bill Parcells, Bill Belichick, and Tom Coughlin. That just sounds unbelievable. That sounds like an all-time coaching staff or something like that.
Oh yeah, well, right now it's a Hall of Fame coaching staff.
Yeah. But that was before my time.
Yep. Now we get our shitty. I get a good coach this year. I hope Vic Fangio lives up to my expectations.
Vic Fangio. Yeah, I mean, it's too bad that they didn't get Kubiak.
Yeah, Kubiak's being weird. I think he's going to go somewhere else, honestly.
Oh, you don't think he's going to stay retired?
No, I think that he was looking at like OC jobs for Jacksonville or Tampa Bay, some like not like an OC, but like one of the I don't know. It's just like helping with the offense. I don't whatever he did for the Broncos this year because he was helping in the office and the
Was he
office.
like a consultant or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. I think he was looking about doing that with another team. Maybe it was the Texans because I think he was the Texans coach a while back. But yeah, that's all right. I'm not worried about it.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it unfolds, I guess. I mean, the Super Bowl is always kind of depressing to me just because it marks the end of the season. But I think when you have that week in between, it helps you like get used to there not being football, and because we already established at the beginning of the program why the Pro Bowl doesn't count.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for spring. That's what the end of the football season means. It means that spring's coming, and honestly, it is. You got pretty much a month. You just got to get through the rest of February and baseball.
Yeah, yeah, man. Baseball, spring training, pitchers and catches are coming soon in just a few weeks. And Manny Machado and Bryce Harper, they still don't have teams.
When do they have to have a team by?
There's no limit really. I mean, technically, they could. You can sign free agents in baseball at any time, really.
Well, there you go. Maybe you won't see them until after spring training.
I mean, the individual is probably a little bit more impact. Baseball is probably the most individualist of the big four sports. So they're gonna figure it out at some point. But man, I've talked about this with several people. You would never have seen this 5 to 10 years ago. Marquee free agents sitting this long without contracts, even though they're going to be expensive. It just goes to show how high their asking price is.
Yeah, I mean, they deserve it. I mean, I don't know how much money they deserve, but they deserve to be the top paid guys right now.
Personally, I don't think that they've proven that they deserve, to be one of the. They both are essentially seeking to be among the top five paid players in MLB history, and I don't think that they've proven to be worth that much just because they've been in the league for between 5 to 10 years at this point, and
Well, yeah, they're in their prime right now. This is it. This is where they would get paid the most. That's why they're asking for the most. Because once they sign this contract, the next contract's not going to be anywhere as close.
It's just tough because teams like the Yankees, they've got guys like Aaron Judge and Gary Sanchez who are playing on rookie contracts right now. So knowing that you're going to have to pay them, and also they're locked into this gigantic thing with Giancarlo Stanton. So you like a team like that, which yes they do have money, they might not be willing to invest the 10 years or so on somebody like Harper or Machado.
Yeah, no, I don't think that they will either.
Nah. But we'll get deeper into that in future MLB episodes. I know Austin will have quite a lot to say because we all know that he loves Manny Machado.
Yeah.
Not so much. He actually does love Harper, though.
No, yeah, I told him that Machado might be on the Yankees, and he didn't want to hear it.
It's looking less likely now, but they have honestly been saying like Phillies and White Sox for both guys for literally 2 months at this
point. I bet you it's somebody that you don't expect. I don't know who, but I bet you it's somebody that you don't expect.
Well, that's a sensible prediction. I can't really argue with that vagueness.
Yes, sir. That's how I do my analyzing.
And you know who's
it's so vague that it has to be true.
You know who's going to win the Super Bowl? The team that scores the most points.
How about who wins the Super Bowl? The team that gets the least amount of penalties.
Okay, that's a fair penalty. A fair argument. Yeah, I mean,
it's not 100% true.
Not yeah, that doesn't always happen. They always say the turnover battle too in football. Usually, you win that, you win the game. That has not always been the case.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah. Well, folks, I think we're rambling. We're winding down here. That was just kind of our bonus extra thoughts on the Super Bowl, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much. You could just label this episode as extra time with Chase and Jared.
Extra time with in Walt Disney World, they would call this extra magic hours.
There you go. Perfect.
Yes, that might even be the title. I don't even know.
I like it.
I like it
I
too.
like it.
All right, folks. Well, we'll be back with the full squad next week for a Super Bowl recap. We're going to talk about everything from the national anthem to the halftime show to all four quarters and hopefully no overtime.
Yeah, hopefully. Hopefully one of my boxes hits.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Super Bowl pools, man.
Makes it worth watching.
Sure does. Money. Alrighty, guys. It's been real.
Am I gonna say?
Yeah.
All right, I guess I'll say because Austin's not here. This has been Call to the Bullpen, and we are.
Hang it up.
There we go.